controversial things that you did as chancellor was you shut down.
I did lots of controversial things. I mean, when people say one of the more controversial things, that's just sort of being damned with faint praise. They say, among the many controversial things, the more, depending on whose ox was being gored, they would say something else was more controversial. But which more controversial thing, Anna, was this one?
One of the hundreds of controversial things you did was you shut down large failing high schools.
Oh, yeah,
but
that was
in their place, you opened several new smaller high schools. And one of these was a school in Brooklyn called P-Tech, which still exists. And President Obama praised P-Tech in his 2013 State of the Union address. And so I was wondering if you could just talk about that school, its mission, and how it came about.
Yeah, so first a little background and predicate, because it was controversial. I shut down probably, over the course of the Bloomberg administration, probably 40 or 50 large high schools that were, when I say failing, I mean some of these schools had a 20 or 25% graduation rate, four-year graduation rate. And that was at a time when the graduation standards were really pitifully low. And so, and it was year in and year out. They were often in high poverty communities. And what they were schools with about 2,800, 2,500 kids, consistent poor record. And there'd be a few kids in each of these schools that would find the right faculty or have the right opportunities. But by and large, they were dead-end schools. And our theory of change was really basically one of trying to find community partners to bring in and work with us on these schools. So we brought in outside talent to the challenge. Second thing was make them much smaller, because for these kids, many came to school 2-3 years to high school, 2-3 years behind. We wanted to make sure that they had a kind of much more intimate experience. You know, Stuyvesant High School, a stone's throw from here, can have 3,000 kids. They're the most high-achieving, most engaged kids. But in other communities where kids are less engaged and they're behind, so our theory was make it small and intimate, grow it a year at a time as we phase out other schools, so you can build a culture in a community, precisely the kind of things that Craig is talking about. Values drive schools, culture drives schools, no different from Google, and that was important to us. And we opened up literally hundreds of these schools, replacing the failing high schools. Every one of those was a difficult fight, and it gives you some sense of the politics of K-12. And I'm not saying this in a critical way, but for the people who work there, they have an attachment. You say you're shutting something down and replacing it. For them, that means I got to find a new place to work. For the people who go there, you're saying something that's not good about their schools. And for the alumni, many of whom haven't been there forever, go crazy over this. One of my closest friends, when I shut down his high school in Far Rockaway, a guy I know really well, still very close to, Richard Cohen, a Washington Post guy, he gave a quote in the paper. He said, well, the only reason Klein shut down Far Rockaway is he was too dumb to get admitted to it when he was in high school in Queens. So that's what you have to go through in this game. But that's been now studied, reviewed, and whatever individual quirks and criticism, it's clear by every measure now. There's been research at Harvard, research at Duke, research at MDRC and elsewhere, that those schools in a double-blind type study were getting 10, 12 points better. Probably my favorite statistic from those schools is African-American males, our hardest demographic group, went to college-going rate from 29% in one group to 42% in new small schools. That's a huge jump, still way too low. And one of the many interesting schools that came out of that, and one of the things by partnering with New Vision's Urban Assembly and other groups, the College Board, we brought lots of new ideas, the kind of thing Craig was talking about. Innovation, differentiation, create a world in which not everything is cookie cutter like in Daly City and Silicon Valley there. And try to create a world of excitement, differentiation. So, you know, the Asia Society created an internationally focused school. College Board focused on a whole bunch of advanced placement issues. Outward Bound had their expeditionary learning, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And one of the great ones came about totally fortuitously, the one that Anna raised, which is a school called P-Tech. And I was talking to the president of IBM, and he said, is IBM doing enough for your schools? And he expected me to say yes. And I said, well, you're doing a lot, but not nearly enough. My view is no one's doing enough for our schools. We've got a long road ahead of us. And he said, what would you like me to do? And I said, here's the idea. Let's take a 4-year high school and a 2-year college and merge them. I'll go to the City University, and we'll get a 6-year program, because that's the real span. Forget what the bureaucrats say, that one is K-12 and one is post-secondary. How about focusing on the kids? They need a 6-year span. Second thing we will do, IBM will be critical to helping us design curriculum, and you will certify my kids. So it's not that you're going to say to me, those kids graduated. You're going to say they're certified by IBM as a technician. And the third thing is, whatever job openings you have for technicians the next year, those kids get top priority. So we highly motivate them. You want to ask about the carrot and the stick? Here there was a big carrot for those kids. And so we opened this thing in a school that we shut down in the middle of Brooklyn. We're in a very tough community, Crown Heights. And all of a sudden, I had just left the chancellorship, and I was listening to the president deliver a State of the Union. He started talking about P-TECH. And that has become not just a national, but a global model. Governor Cuomo sponsored about 10 of them. My favorite story was, because IBM opened one in New York, Rahm Emanuel, who knew the president of IBM better than I did, called Sam Palmisano and said, Sam, he said, what are you doing? I thought you were my buddy. He said, what are you talking about? He said, you just gave Bloomberg a school. He said, all right, calm down, Rahm, because Rahm's hard to calm down. He said, calm down, Rahm. He said, I'll give you a school as well. And he said, oh, no, that won't do. He said, if you give me the first one might be enough. I need 5 now. So IBM's now spread its wings. Stan Litow is running his program for him at IBM, doing an amazing job. But it's one, again, different way to think about it. And the immediate response we got was, well, how are you going to combine this 2-year program that's run by CUNY with, and all that bureaucratic stuff is impeding our ability to innovate. Now, the one thing about innovation, which I want to put on the table now, is it doesn't guarantee success. Innovation guarantees opportunity. It guarantees the chance of success. But some of the things that you do when you innovate are going to fail. And some of the things we did, some of the schools we opened, failed. I'll never forget meeting with a reporter who was writing a series about, of the many new schools we opened, the ones that failed. And I said to him, what are you doing, man? I said, 9 out of 10 of these schools are doing really well, and you're writing about the ones that failed. He said, well, in the newspaper business, we don't write about the planes that land. We write about the planes that crash. I said, man, in education, the news is the schools that succeed, not the schools. Write about them. So, but that's the key to understanding. And it goes to this resistance to change that Craig talked about, which is you can't guarantee success. People would say, well, how do you know if you open up a new school? I'd say what I do know is it's going to be very hard to have lower than a 25% graduation rate. And that's what Evander Childs, school that my mother went to way back when, that's what Evander Childs had for the last 10 years. And we've got to do better than that. And the only way we're going to do better than that is change it. Wishing and hoping ain't going to get it done.